I'm still too short for these stools. Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Get on the stage.
Don't tempt me. So, hi, I'm Kira, or Kitty, pick one. I am coming from Kitty Cat Games, which is a company that I set up, hence the kitty. So, who's thought about setting up a studio of their own? Cool. This is more for you guys then. So, starting from the beginning, I'm Kitty. I forgot I put that one in there. I was with LMA initially, with Matt, with Beth, with Craig. Beth, Craig, and Matt were all my tutors. So I left in COVID at the start, came to SAE, where I had Firdaus. And so I've got my degree in game art animation. I'd like to say I'm mainly a 3D modeler, but I dabble. Matt was saying earlier in regards to don't get discouraged if you can't find a job. I did. I went, if you won't hire me, let's make my own job. So I set up the studio. So it seems kind of like daunting when you first kind of look at it, because you're like, oh, where do I start? What do I do? And all that. And I very much came across that side of things. So I'm here to essentially tell you how to do it, things to remember, and it's not actually as scary as you think it is. So yeah, first things first, you need to have a plan. What are you wanting to do? What makes you different? We like to say, like, who are we doing it for? Because yeah, we all know that we're doing it so that we can get paid, but also it's good to have a secondary reason of things. And then knowing your starting steps, which is why I'm here. So what's the studio's goal? For Kitty Cat Games, we decided that we wanted to make games that we enjoy playing as well as making. We very much are a studio who are focused on everyone enjoying it, because there's nothing worse than working on a game that you despise from experience. It sucks. Don't do it. But obviously at times you don't have a choice in that matter. If you're working for someone and a project comes out and you're put on that project, kind of tough luck. If there's no other projects, Matt's no doubt worked on games he couldn't stand. I know I've done it. So just kind of have an idea. So for KCG, we want to, as I said, make games that we enjoy playing. We're focused more on the horror side of things, but we also like a bit of detective work. So that's kind of our focus, our niche. I hope I've written that inside. Yeah, which leads us to the hook. Ours is like I said, the detective work side of things. Spooky games. I love a spooky game. Can't play them. Love to make them. I am so scared in games. It's ridiculous. When I first started making video games, when I first started getting into it, in I think 2017 was my first foray into game design, and I went onto a Princess Trust course. They were teaching us about how to set up AI, and I'd set it all up and I was testing it out and it wasn't working, and I was like, this is a bit strange. So I had my little character pretty much right on top of the AI, and I shifted and it moved very quickly and I actually screamed. So you know. But yeah, having a hook is definitely an important thing, because obviously everyone knows Skyhook, everyone knows, about to say KCG then, I was like, whoa. Everyone knows like Dambuster Studios. They know Lucid, all that kind of Fire Sprite and all that. And they've got very specific kind of styles. They've got their hook, their niche side of things. So definitely figure out what it is that you want to do. Don't necessarily stick completely to it, but I would say have that as your main idea, your main focus. Who are you doing this for? As I said, we all know that we'd like to get paid. We all want to be able to wake up on a Monday and just go, no. We want to be able to take that day off because we feel like it. And that's fine, but also keeping, especially for a game studio, you have to keep in mind your clients, the end user, the players. They are who you are making it for, because while we're making games for ourselves, we're also trying to sell them. So always, you've no doubt come across it where you have to do looks into what's popular and do kind of like almost like a case study before you start doing things. Or if you haven't, you probably will in second year. I don't know what year you guys are in. But it's essentially looking to see what's popular at the moment, what people are enjoying playing, because there's no point putting out a like Tetris style game when Elden Ring is popular at the moment. People might still play it, people might still buy it, but you're not going to have as many people as like an Elden Ring, basically. So keep in mind who you're doing it for. It's not just yourself, unless you don't sell it, and then sure. So knowing your starting steps. First things first, this is where it gets a bit boring, and I apologize, but this is where I started getting confused. The first things first, if you're like me and you rent, and the landlord goes, you can't set up businesses from your house, that's not allowed. Look into getting a business address. That also means that your address does not show up on Companies House. People can't put in your company name, and they won't find out where you live, which is great. So I personally use something called Ghostmail, which means that Kitty Cat Games is actually registered down in London, even though we kind of operate, HQ is here in Liverpool. That's perfectly fine. It's mainly for where all of your post will go. The good thing about Ghostmail is that if they receive post for your company, they will scan it and they'll email it to you, so I don't have mountains of paperwork, which is great. So setting up your business address to start with is fantastic. Ghostmail is also, heads up, quite cheap. It's like £54 for an entire year. They do sometimes email and you're like, are you still who you say you are? And it's, ugh. Yeah, exactly. It got really confusing because I got married last year, so so actually no, yeah, I completely forgot to tell them, and they were like, dear Miss Mackie, and I was like, fucking what? But yeah, well, my ID had changed into my married name, and they were like, we need your marriage license. I was like, okay. But it's all quick and easy, and it's generally, I've not really had any issues with them. There was like one accident where a new guy sent someone else's information along with mine, and I was like, yikes. But that was fine. Second step, Companies House. That is how to tell the government that you are planning on, that you are setting up a studio, you're setting up a company. You have to do that no matter if it's a game studio or what. Yeah?
Is the name trademarked?
Trademarking is kind of a different side of things. So with it being registered, you are registered as being the legal owner of that company, but there is nothing really saying that, like, PlayStation couldn't just turn around and go like, we're renaming ourselves to Kitty Cat Games. And I'd be like, hey, well, that was me first, and I can prove that it was, but ultimately, they've got more money than I do, so they will probably win that. But you can register it as a trademark, but it's entirely separate thing. That's something that I wouldn't really worry about until a little bit later. Like, Kitty Cat Games is very much an indie studio. We are itty bitty. We are very small. I'm not really worried at the moment of anyone trying to steal the studio name. I will fight them. It's like, we are small enough where I could fist fight them and get away with it. So it's, yeah. But yeah, no, trademarking and all that side of things is a bit of a different aspect, if that makes sense. So we've not really done that, so I can't really advise on that side of things. I'm just saying that this is your starting steps. So yeah, once you set up a company's house, it's really, really easy. You tell them what the name of the studio it is, or whatever the company name is that you want to call it. You set it all up. You give them the address that you want it to run from. You give them all your information, because as the person setting it up, you are saying, I'm the director. We are a limited liability company, which means that we have less tax to pay. If we don't get money, we don't spend money. It's great. It means as well that the company's worth is mainly in shares, which I'm sure you guys know a little bit about, I hope. It's all Hollywood where they're like, you can't do that. I own 75% of the company. All that BS. Which, if you're setting up with other people, is great. It can be great. It's a double-edged sword. It can be great if you're like me, where it's me and my husband. I'm the main majority shareholder, and he's got a little bit because he doesn't really care. You know, it's, well, I mean, he's got a little bit. He's there, but he doesn't really know. So he's like, So, the only downside is that if we ever get divorced, I fist fight him. So if you were like me though, and you set it up and it was just yourself, then a limited liability is great because, like I said, you own everything. You say what everything goes on. If you get people who want to invest in your studio, then you can offer shares. And then that works. So they'll have a percentage while you have a percentage. You just tell Company's House how much your company is worth. Generally speaking, when you first start out, everyone puts £1. So like 100 shares is worth a penny each kind of thing. And then if people want to buy shares, they pay you that amount, so on and so forth. That's a completely different thing. Let's not get into that side of things. There are other variations of it, but starting up, limited liability, it's great. So step 3, setting up a website. I'm kind of going down the path that we chose. So straight after I'd set it all up, I was like, we need to tell people who we are, what we do. I actually ended up on the recommendation of Third House, stealing one of the web students from my year. He's great. He set up the studio website. We worked together. We chose a hosting company. We chose Green Geeks, which operates out of the US. Phenomenal service. You get free emails and everything with it. Like, you can set up email accounts for everyone who works with you. It's great. It's amazing. And it's good for the environment. They plant trees or something. I don't know. They just keep on emailing me and they're like, this is how many trees we planted. I'm like, okay, just make my emails work. That's fine. But yeah, we set up a website, so we were able to, he was more of the technical side of things, whereas I made it look pretty. Thanks to Beth helping me with the making everything look pretty side of my degree initially. So, make it look pretty, make it look interesting, eye-catching. Obviously, wear white cat on a black background for our logo, so we kept that kind of theme throughout. Make it recognizable. A lot of studios are bright colors now. You can go down that route. That's more of a design and personal choice issue. Well, not issue, but personal choice. You get me. So step 4, I put this in because recently I completely forgot about this, and then I got a random threatening email from Company's House, and I realized I forgot to set my reminders again. if you have ADHD like me and it's unmedicated, reminders. Every single year, you apparently need to, I say apparently, every single year you need to submit what's it called? Not quite. I mean, it's along those lines, yeah. You have to basically say to them, yep, everything is still the same. I'm still the director. All the information's the same. Nothing has changed. And it costs £34, but for an entire year, it's not bad. You do need to submit your tax, which if you're not what they call trading, which is selling anything at the time, if you are spending the entire time making things like we are, you don't really have to worry about it because you're like, we haven't sold anything, we've not received anything, our net is 0. And they're like, okay. And then they don't charge us, which is great. So definitely setting up reminders is incredibly important. As you can see, the 3rd of July, that was due on like May. So don't do that. Learn from my mistakes. But yeah, reminders are very much important because 365 days is a long freaking time. Yeah, and then after that, you can look into business loans, investors, shareholders. Each of them have their pros and their cons. As I said earlier, people who are investors, they will give you money, but they'll often ask for money back. Sometimes at a higher rate, 9 times out of 10 at a higher rate than what you borrowed from them. That can work if you want to keep complete control over your company. Shareholders, you offer them a bit of your company for a bit of their money. The downside of that is that they have a say in what you can do. They can turn around and go, I don't think that will work. And you have to listen to them. Whereas like people can say that to me now and I'm like, okay, and business loans, if you find the right kind of one, definitely do research if you go with them. They can look pretty on the surface, but be very, very gruesome underneath. And you can get ones which look great and are great. There's also different schemes that you can do with the government and all that kind of stuff. Like, I've forgotten the word, but grants. There's grants out there for so many different things. So yeah, any questions?
Did want to ask if you've ever been approached about becoming a sister company to another games development company?
Not yet. Simply because we are still working on stuff. So we've been set up for, I think it's just over 2 years now, but we've got multiple projects on the go, which for a company that has technically no employees, that's the thing as well. We are completely volunteer. So because we've got no income, we've got no outcome, everyone who works with us is completely volunteer. And I've said from the very get-go, if you work with us, it's like your work, your education, your family, all that comes first. Because I found that a lot of studios don't do that. A lot of companies don't do that. Like the moment your name is associated, you are theirs for life kind of thing. I didn't want KCG to be like that at all. I want to be able to be, I think when I set it up, one of the things that I said was that I want it to be that kind of stepping stone to the dream job side of things. So I don't want it to, while I don't want a high turnover, I want people to come and stay. I also want people to be able to achieve what they want to kind of thing. So if people do approach us and say, hey, become a sister company, I'd have to look at the fine print. Like it's, yeah, that's a choice. Yeah.
Did you look into Kickstarter and crowdfunding?
Yeah, so we do have a Kickstarter. The difficulty with that side of things is that I have unmedicated ADHD. I close the tab, I forget it exists. And I am the one who is running everything at the moment. So yeah, it's the reminders only go so far. We've got a few projects that are set up, and one of them's pretty close to release. We were initially going to sell it solely on the website, and then I got in touch with a producer from a different company through like a little course that I did just to pass the time, and he suggested like itch.io. I didn't know you could actually sell your things on there. I thought it was all free. Nope. So we've got that set up. We've got Kickstarter set up. We've got all that. We've got Patreon, I think, somewhere. Yeah.
I love you enough. It's impossible.
Yeah, I love puns. So when I turned around to my now husband and I was like, I want to set up a studio and it's going to be called Kitty Cat Games and I want the slogan, the tagline to be nothing's impossible. He groaned and I was like, it's perfect. Yes.
No questions, I just think you're cool and you should keep
Thank
going.
you. It's hard, like, but that's the thing though as well. Like I genuinely enjoy doing it. I don't want to like sugarcoat it. It is so much hard work. It's so confusing. It's so confusing and there's so much red tape and there's not very many answers out there. It's like I said, we've been set up for like 2 years now and it's taken us this long because I didn't know any of this stuff. Like I knew initially, even because I pitched the idea initially to Third House when I was here. And I was like, I want to set up a studio. Like, that is my end goal. I want to finish uni and set up my own studio. And Third House was the one who mentioned, like, maybe look into this side of things. And I was working at the Home Office at the same time. So I was quite lucky where I mentioned it offhand to someone. I was like, I want to set up a studio, but I have no idea how to do that. And he was like, oh, just go on Company's House. It's cheap. It's easy. It's like £34 and that's done. I was like, what? What do you mean? But he kind of ended the conversation there, so he didn't tell me everything else, which was, but Liverpool's got so much in the way of like different studios. Like there's Skyhook, there's Lucid, there's so many around the corner. But those are, in my opinion, quite big. Like even though Matt's like, Skyhook's pretty small compared to like KCG, it's still pretty big. Like, but I don't think it should be, especially with the state of games that are coming out at the moment. AAA games are getting a bit problematic from big studios. Indie studios are coming up and they're like, we're gonna hit ya. And I love that because you generally find, I don't know if anyone else finds this, but you generally find that the indie studios, we've put more love into it. We care about it a lot more. We care about our image. So we put out finished games. But yeah. Anyone else? No? Cool.
Right. So
Oh, yeah, join us on Discord. I forgot that I put that in there. It should take you straight to it. I tested it. My sister tested it. If it doesn't work, I'll kill her. So, yes. We've got people all over the globe really who are in the Discord. So if you fancy meeting any Americans, I got some. I got a handful of them. But yeah. You do it. I don't know how to.
In the Discord.